The Mediterranean sun streamed through the villa's ancient windows as I stood frozen, my mother's words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. This villa belongs to Marcus now. You need to leave. I'm Sophia, 32, and for the past 2 years, I've been living in and restoring my grandfather's historic villa in southern Italy after his passing. Now, during our annual family reunion, my parents had chosen to ambush me with this announcement. My younger brother Marcus stood smugly beside them, his wife Victoria clutching his arm with a triumphant smile. The same brother who hadn't visited Grandpa once during his final years, too busy building his empire of failed startups in Silicon Valley. You can't be serious, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Grandpa left the villa to me. I have the papers. Papers can be changed, my father declared, pulling out a folder. We've had our lawyer review everything. As the only male heir, Marcus has the rightful claim to the family estate. The gathered relatives murmured among themselves. Aunt Maria, Grandpa's sister, watched from her corner seat, her dark eyes narrowing at my parents' performance. The only male heir. I laughed incredulously. This isn't 1850. Grandpa specifically left the villa to me because I was the only one who cared about preserving it. Preserving it? Marcus stepped forward, gesturing around the room. Look at this place. It's stuck in the past. My development plans will turn this into a luxury boutique hotel. We'll make millions. I looked around at the room he was so casually dismissing. Every inch of this villa held memories. The hand-painted ceiling frescoes Grandpa had restored himself. The ancient olive wood beams he'd lovingly maintained. The marble floors where he taught me to dance during summer visits. You want to turn our family home into a hotel? My voice cracked. It's just business, sis, Marcus shrugged. You can have a job here if you want. Maybe in housekeeping. Victoria laughed, and I saw my mother hide a smile behind her hand. The same mother who'd once spent summers here with me, helping Grandpa tend his olive grove. I've spent 2 years restoring this place, I said. I've used my entire savings, learned traditional restoration techniques, worked with local artisans. And we appreciate your hobby, my father interrupted. But it's time for professional management. Marcus has investors ready. Investors? Aunt Maria's voice cut through the tension. She stood slowly, her small frame commanding attention. Interesting. Have you shown them the study yet, Sophia? My parents exchanged confused looks. The study. Grandpa's private sanctuary had remained locked since his death. He'd left me the key with specific instructions not to open it until the right moment. What about the study? Marcus demanded. Aunt Maria smiled mysteriously. Alessandro always said the villa's true inheritance was in his study. But then you wouldn't know that, would you? You were too busy to visit when he was alive. I felt the weight of Grandpa's key in my pocket, where I carried it every day for 2 years, waiting for that right moment he'd spoken of. Open it. Aunt Maria nodded to me. I think your grandfather would say this is the right moment. With trembling fingers, I pulled out the old brass key. My parents and Marcus followed as I walked to the heavy wooden door that had remained sealed for 2 years. The key turned smoothly in the lock. The door creaked open, revealing Grandpa's sanctuary. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. His desk, his books, his collection of maps and documents. But it was the large envelope on his desk that caught everyone's attention. On it, in Grandpa's elegant handwriting, was written, "To be opened when they try to take it from you, my dear Sophia." What is that? Marcus lunged forward, but Aunt Maria blocked his path with surprising agility. Your grandfather knew this day would come, she said softly. He knew they would try to take his legacy from the only one who truly understood its value. I picked up the envelope, my heart pounding. Whatever Grandpa had left in this room, whatever message or document was waiting in this envelope, I knew it would change everything. Open it, Aunt Maria encouraged, while my parents and Marcus watched in tense silence. As I broke the seal, I could almost hear Grandpa's voice, smell his familiar scent of tobacco and olive wood. The right moment had finally arrived, and I knew nothing would ever be the same after this. Little did my family know, Grandpa's study held secrets that would shatter their plans and reveal the true meaning of inheritance, one that had nothing to do with gender or business plans, and everything to do with love, respect, and preservation of our family's real legacy. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. Several documents slid out, along with a letter in Grandpa's distinctive handwriting. The afternoon sun filtering through the study's windows illuminated the papers as I began to read aloud. My dearest Sophia, if you're reading this, they've finally shown their true colors. Your parents and brother have never understood that our villa isn't just property. It's the heart of our family's history. But you, my dear granddaughter, always understood. Marcus scoffed, but Aunt Maria silenced him with a sharp look. I continued reading. What they don't know is that this villa holds more than just memories. In 1943, during the war, our family protected priceless artifacts from looters. The Italian Heritage Commission granted our family permanent protected status for this service. The villa isn't just a house. It's a registered historical monument. My father's face paled. That's impossible. I shuffled through the documents, finding official papers from the Italian government. It's all here. The villa can never be commercially developed or significantly altered. Any changes must be approved by the Heritage Commission. Those papers could be outdated. Marcus stepped forward, his business facade cracking. My lawyers can find a way around. There's more? I interrupted, returning to Grandpa's letter. I've watched you restore these walls with the same love I once had. While your brother sent birthday cards and Christmas gifts, you spent every holiday here, learning our family's stories, understanding our legacy. Victoria tugged at Marcus's sleeve. Surely we can contest this. The hotel project is dead, Aunt Maria declared. Alessandro made sure of that. I pulled out another document, this one newer. The Heritage Commission approved my restoration project last year. Grandpa submitted it before he died. The villa is now officially under historical protection, with me as its designated custodian. You knew about this? My mother turned to Aunt Maria accusingly. Of course I knew. I helped Alessandro prepare everything. We both saw how you all treated this place, like a commodity to be sold to the highest bidder. More papers slipped from the envelope. Photographs, old letters, and a detailed inventory of every historical feature in the villa. Grandpa had documented everything, creating an unbreakable chain of heritage that no developer could touch. This is ridiculous, Marcus exploded. I'm the son, the male heir. This villa should be mine to what? I stood up, feeling Grandpa's strength flowing through me. To destroy? To turn into another soulless luxury hotel? Look around you, Marcus, really look. I gestured to the study's walls, where maps showed the villa's centuries-old olive groves, the ancient well system, the historical gardens. Every stone, every beam, every fresco tells our family's story. This isn't a business opportunity, it's our heritage. Your brother's right, my father started, but Aunt Maria cut him off. No, he's not. And deep down, you know it. She walked to a portrait of Grandpa hanging on the wall. Alessandro watched all of you chase money and status, forgetting where you came from. Only Sophia remembered. I found another note in the envelope, this one addressed to my parents, to my son and daughter-in-law. I love you, but you lost your way. The villa isn't a possession to be fought over. It's a responsibility to be honored. Sophia understands this. Let her show you how to remember. My mother sat heavily in Grandpa's old leather chair, the fight draining from her face. All those summers we spent here, remember? She asked my father softly. Before we got caught up in Marcus's business ventures and social climbing. Marcus wasn't ready to give up. But the investors can invest somewhere else, I said firmly. This villa stays in the family, preserved as Grandpa wanted. You're welcome to visit, to reconnect with our heritage, to let your future children know their history, but it will never be a hotel. Victoria pulled Marcus toward the door, whispering urgently about calling their lawyer. But looking at the official Heritage Commission seals, we all knew it was over. My father stood silently, running his hand along Grandpa's bookshelf. He collected these books for years, he said quietly. I used to help him organize them every summer. The shelf is exactly as you left it, I told him. I never changed it. Something shifted in the room's atmosphere. My mother wiped tears from her eyes, looking around as if seeing the study for the first time. Aunt Maria smiled knowingly. Alessandro always said the villa would choose its own guardian, she mused. He just helped make it official. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the study's windows, I felt Grandpa's presence strongly. He'd given me more than just the villa. He'd given me the means to protect our family's soul. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out the final document. Grandpa left detailed plans for restoring the entire estate, including the olive groves. He hoped it would be a family project. My parents exchanged glances, memories of happier summers flickering in their eyes. Even Marcus paused in the doorway, looking back at the study where he'd once played as a child. The villa had spoken. Now it was up to them to listen. 1 year later, I stood in the villa's restored garden, watching my family gather for our first olive harvest since Grandpa's passing. The transformation wasn't just in the villa's restored beauty, it was in the people around me. Marcus sat under an ancient olive tree, teaching his young daughter, born 3 months ago, about the different types of olives, reading from one of Grandpa's old notebooks. After the study revelation, he'd initially retreated to lick his wounds, but something unexpected happened. The birth of little Isabella had shifted his perspective entirely. "Sophia," he called out, waving me over. "Remember how Grandpa used to say each tree had its own personality? I found his notes about this one. It's over 300 years old." The brother who once saw only profit margins now spent weekends learning traditional olive cultivation. His hotel investors were long gone, replaced by a genuine interest in preserving our family's agricultural heritage. My parents had undergone their own transformation. Mom was in the kitchen, recreating Grandpa's traditional recipes with Aunt Maria, while Dad led tours for local schoolchildren, sharing our villa's wartime history of protecting artifacts. The Heritage Commission was impressed with the restoration, Aunt Maria said, joining me in the garden. "They're considering making the villa a center for traditional agricultural education." I nodded, watching Victoria help her daughter touch the gnarled olive tree trunk. My sister-in-law had surprised everyone by becoming passionate about the villa's historical gardens, even taking courses in Mediterranean plant conservation. "Grandpa would love this," I said softly. "He knew it would happen this way," Aunt Maria smiled. "That's why he left such detailed instructions. The study wasn't just about legal protection. It was about giving everyone time to remember what matters." She was right. The past year had been about more than just physical restoration. Every weekend, family members would arrive, helping with different projects. My parents restored the library. Marcus worked on the olive groves, and even distant cousins contributed their skills. The villa was alive again, but differently than before. Not as a luxury hotel, but as Grandpa had envisioned, a living connection to our past and a bridge to our future. "Lunch is ready," Mom called from the terrace. The long wooden table that had witnessed countless family meals was set again, laden with traditional dishes made from our own olive oil. As everyone gathered, I noticed Marcus hanging back. "Everything okay?" I asked him. He bounced Isabella gently in his arms. "I was wrong, Sophia. About everything. I was so focused on building something new that I couldn't see the treasure we already had." "The villa has enough room for new dreams," I assured him, "just not at the expense of its soul." "Isabella will grow up knowing her heritage," he said firmly. "Not just the property, but the values, the history, the connection to the land." Over lunch, surrounded by family, the conversation flowed freely. Dad shared stories about helping Grandpa restore the frescoes as a boy. Mom remembered learning to cook in the villa's kitchen. Even Victoria contributed, discussing her plans for reviving the historic herb garden. "I found something else in the study," I announced, pulling out a weathered journal. Grandpa's complete family history going back generations. He wrote it during his final year. The table fell silent as I opened it. He wrote about each of us, what he hoped we'd remember, what he dreamed we'd become. "Read it," Marcus urged, surprising everyone. "We should know." As the afternoon sun painted the villa's walls with golden light, I read Grandpa's words. He wrote about love, legacy, and the true meaning of inheritance. About how buildings can hold more than just people. They can hold the stories that shape us, the traditions that guide us, and the love that binds us. The villa was never about ownership, I read from his final entry. It was about stewardship, each generation adding their own chapter while preserving those that came before. Sophia understood this instinctively, but I always hoped everyone would remember eventually. Looking around the table at the faces of my reconciled family, I knew Grandpa's hope had been realized. The villa hadn't just been saved, it had saved us, bringing us back to what mattered most. As the sun set over the olive groves, casting long shadows across the ancient stones, I could almost hear Grandpa's laugh in the evening breeze. His beloved villa was more than preserved, it was cherished, alive with new memories while honoring the old. The study's revelation hadn't just protected the villa's structure, it had restored our family's foundation. And that, I knew, was Grandpa's greatest legacy of all. I stood in my sewing room, staring at the shredded remains of what had been my daughter Emma's graduation dress, my hands trembling as I picked up pieces of delicate silk and lace from the floor. Hundreds of hours of work, destroyed in minutes by a woman who had never accepted us as family. She doesn't deserve a special day. Patricia's words still rang in my ears, her face twisted with the same contempt she had shown us for the past 15 years. My Thomas deserves better than a stepdaughter who merely gets by. My name is Sophia Bennett, and at 42, I never imagined I'd be dealing with a mother-in-law who would destroy something so precious to my daughter. I'm a professional seamstress, and for the past 6 months I had poured my heart into creating the perfect graduation dress for Emma. Every crystal, every stitch was a testament to the love I had for my daughter and the pride I felt in her achievements. The dress had been magnificent, a sweeping A-line gown in ivory silk with hand-beaded lace overlays that I had spent weeks perfecting. Emma had tried it on just yesterday, her eyes sparkling with joy as she twirled in front of the mirror. "Mom, it's perfect," she had whispered, hugging me tight. "I can't believe you made this for me." But now, less than 24 hours before her graduation ceremony, it lay in ruins. Patricia had waited until Emma was at her final graduation rehearsal, until my husband Thomas was at work, to make her move. She had used her spare key, the one Thomas had insisted she keep for emergencies, to enter our home and destroy months of work. I picked up my phone, my hands still shaking, and called Laura, my best friend and fellow seamstress. She did what? Laura's voice crackled through the speaker, thick with disbelief and anger. "Sophia, you need to call the police. This is destruction of property." "It wouldn't matter," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Thomas would never press charges against his mother. You know how he gets when it comes to her." It was true, my husband, for all his wonderful qualities, had a blind spot when it came to Patricia. Years of manipulation had left him unable to stand up to her, always finding excuses for her behavior. "Then what are you going to do?" Laura asked. "Emma's graduation is tomorrow morning." I took a deep breath, looking at the calendar on my wall. Next to tomorrow's date, I had written Emma's big day surrounded by little hearts. My daughter, who had worked so hard despite Patricia's constant belittling, deserved her moment to shine. "Remember Project Phoenix?" I asked Laura, a small smile forming despite everything. "The backup dress?" Laura gasped. "You actually made it." "I did," I confirmed, walking to my storage closet and pulling out a garment bag I had hidden behind winter coats. "I've been working on it in secret for months. After Patricia ruined Emma's art project last year, I knew she might try something like this." Inside the bag was another dress, even more beautiful than the first. While the original had been traditional, this one was bold. A deep midnight blue silk that shimmered with thousands of tiny crystals like a star-filled night sky. I had worked on it during lunch breaks and late at night, knowing that Patricia's jealousy might drive her to do something drastic. "Oh, Sophia," Laura breathed when I sent her a photo. "It's stunning." "But what about Patricia? She'll be at the graduation." "Let her come," I said, feeling a surge of determination. "It's time she learned she can't break us. Emma's stronger than she thinks, and so am I." Just then, I heard the front door open and Emma's voice called out, "Mom, I'm home." "In the sewing room, sweetie," I called back, quickly zipping up the garment bag with the backup dress. I heard her footsteps approaching and braced myself for her reaction to the destruction. Emma stopped in the doorway, her eyes widening as she took in the scene. The scraps of ivory silk scattered across the floor, the broken beads, the shredded lace. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. "The dress. What happened?" I crossed the room and pulled her into a tight hug. "Patricia happened," I said softly, feeling her body tense at the name. "But don't worry, honey. She hasn't won. Not this time." Emma pulled back, wiping tears from her eyes. "But graduation's tomorrow. Everyone's expecting. I can't jest." I cut her off by reaching for the hidden garment bag. "Your grandmother underestimates us both," I said, unzipping it slowly. "She always has. Maybe it's time we showed her exactly what we're capable of." As I revealed the midnight blue dress, Emma's gasp of surprise turned into a sound of pure joy. "Mom," she breathed, reaching out to touch the crystalline bodice. Did you make this too?" "I did," I smiled, watching her face light up. "Because you deserve not just a special day, but an extraordinary one. Patricia can destroy a dress, but she can't destroy who you are or what you've achieved." The front door opened again, Thomas coming home from work. Soon, I'd have to explain what his mother had done, face his excuses, his attempts to minimize her actions. But for now, I held my daughter close, both of us admiring the dress that represented more than just a graduation gown. It was a symbol of resilience, of preparation, of refusing to let anyone dim our light. "Try it on," I urged Emma, knowing Patricia's reaction tomorrow would be priceless. Sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation, it's being prepared for whatever life, or spiteful mother-in-laws, might throw at you. Little did Patricia know, her attempt to ruin Emma's graduation was about to backfire spectacularly. The morning of Emma's graduation dawned bright and clear. I was putting the final touches on her makeup when I heard Thomas's sharp intake of breath from the doorway. He stood there, staring at Emma in the midnight blue dress that seemed to capture the light and transform it into something magical. That's not the dress I saw last week," he said slowly, his brow furrowing in confusion. "What happened to the ivory one?" Emma tensed beside me, but I kept my hand steady as I applied her mascara. "Why don't you ask your mother?" I replied calmly. "She used her emergency key yesterday while we were out." Thomas's face paled. "Mom wouldn't. She couldn't have." "The pieces are still in my sewing room if you want to see them," I said, finishing Emma's makeup. Every bead, every scrap of silk, everything I worked on for 6 months, destroyed in minutes. "There must be some mistake," Thomas started, but Emma cut him off. "No, Dad, no more excuses." She stood up, the dress flowing around her like liquid starlight. "Grandma Patricia has been trying to ruin everything special in my life since I was 7. The art project she accidentally spilled coffee on. The piano recital she tried to cancel. Every achievement, every milestone, she's tried to take them all away." I watched my husband's face as the truth of his daughter's words sank in. For years, he had turned a blind eye to his mother's behavior, always finding ways to explain away her cruelty. But standing there, seeing the pain in his daughter's eyes, something finally seemed to break through. "I'll talk to her," he said weakly. "No," I replied, gathering Emma's graduation cap and tassel. "Today isn't about Patricia. It's about Emma. She's graduating with honors, giving the opening speech, and nothing, not even your mother, is going to overshadow that." As we drove to the ceremony, I could feel Thomas struggling with the revelation of his mother's true nature. He kept glancing at Emma in the rearview mirror, perhaps seeing for the first time how much his daughter had endured in silence. We arrived at the school auditorium early. Emma needed to meet with the other student speakers. As she walked away, her blue dress drawing admiring glances, I spotted Patricia and her husband, George, near the entrance. Her face, when she saw Emma, was a study in thwarted rage. "What is she wearing?" Patricia hissed, grabbing Thomas's arm as we approached. "That's not the dress that you showed me last week." "No," I said pleasantly, loud enough for nearby parents to hear. "That dress had an unfortunate accident yesterday when someone broke into our house and destroyed it. Thankfully, I always have a backup plan." Patricia's face flushed red. Several parents turned to stare, whispers breaking out among the crowd. George, who had always seemed oblivious to his wife's schemes, looked confused. "What do you mean someone broke in?" he asked. "Oh, not broken exactly," I clarified, smiling sweetly at Patricia. "They used a key. An emergency key that only family would have. Isn't that right, Patricia?" Before she could respond, the principal announced it was time to take our seats. As we filed into the auditorium, I could hear Patricia furiously whispering to Thomas, no doubt trying to spin another tale of innocence and misunderstanding. But when Emma took the stage for her opening speech, resplendent in her star-studded gown, even Patricia fell silent. My daughter stood at the podium, her voice clear and strong as she addressed her graduating class. "Life isn't about the obstacles people put in our path," she began, her eyes finding mine in the crowd. "It's about how we choose to overcome them. Sometimes the people who should support us the most are the ones who try to hold us back. But true strength isn't in never falling. It's in rising every time someone tries to knock us down. I saw Thomas wipe a tear from his eye, finally hearing what his daughter had been trying to tell him for years. Patricia sat rigid in her seat, her face a mask of barely contained fury as Emma continued to speak about resilience, about facing adversity with grace, about the power of preparation and perseverance. When Emma finished, the applause was thunderous. As she walked back to her seat, her dress catching the light like a cascade of falling stars, I caught Patricia's eye. For the first time in 15 years, I saw something new in her expression. Fear. Not of me exactly, but of what I represented, someone who couldn't be broken, who would always find a way to protect her child from cruelty, even if it came wrapped in the guise of family. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur of names and cheers. When Emma walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she didn't just walk, she glided, every step a quiet declaration of victory. The dress I created in secret, born from years of anticipating Patricia's sabotage, had transformed from a backup plan into a symbol of defiance. As the graduates threw their caps into the air, I watched my daughter embrace her friends, her smile bright enough to outshine any star. Patricia's attempt to dim Emma's special day had backfired spectacularly, and everyone, from the other parents to the school staff, couldn't stop commenting on how stunning she looked. But this wasn't just about a dress. It was about something much bigger, something that had been building for 15 years. As we gathered outside for photos, I could see the wheels turning in Patricia's head, perhaps realizing for the first time that her power over our family was slipping. Little did she know, this was just the beginning. The midnight blue dress wasn't the only backup plan I had carefully prepared over the years. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in the moment of triumph, it's in the slow, steady revelation that every attempt to break someone has only made them stronger. And Patricia was about to learn just how strong we'd become. The aftermath of Emma's graduation unfolded in ways none of us expected. While other families headed off to celebrations, our group stood in tense silence in the school parking lot. Thomas, who had barely spoken since Emma's speech, finally turned to his mother. "You need to give me your key back," he said quietly, holding out his hand. "I can't trust you anymore." Patricia's face contorted with rage. "How dare you? After everything I've done for this family." "Done for us?" Emma stepped forward, her blue dress shimmering in the afternoon sun. "You mean like destroying my first dress? Or should we talk about all the other things you've done over the years?" I reached into my purse and pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook. "Actually, let's talk about those things, Patricia. I've kept a detailed record of every accident, every sabotage, every cruel comment since Emma was 7. Patricia's smug expression faltered as I opened the notebook. September 12, 2015. Patricia spilled bleach on Emma's art project the night before the school exhibition. March 3, 2016, Patricia canceled Emma's piano recital by calling the school, pretending to be me. "You kept records?" George, Patricia's husband, asked incredulously. With dates, witnesses, and photographs, I confirmed. I started documenting everything after the third accident. I knew someday we'd need proof. Thomas took the notebook with trembling hands, flipping through pages of his mother's documented cruelty. "Mom," he whispered, "how could you? She's not even your real daughter." Patricia exploded, pointing at Emma. "She doesn't deserve." "Enough." Thomas's voice thundered across the parking lot. "Emma became my daughter the day I married Sophia. She's more family to me than you are right now." Patricia turned to George, expecting support, but he was still reading over Thomas's shoulder, his face growing darker with each page. "Patricia," he said slowly, "did you really tell Emma's college counselor that she was mentally unstable to sabotage her applications?" "I was protecting our family," Patricia sputtered, "making sure she didn't embarrass us." "The only embarrassment here is you," Emma said quietly, "and I got into every college I applied to, by the way. Mom helped me submit applications through a different counselor." I stepped forward, facing Patricia directly. "That's what you never understood. Every time you tried to hurt Emma, you just taught us to be more prepared, more resourceful. The dress wasn't the first backup plan I created, and it won't be the last." "What do you mean?" Patricia demanded. "She means I have copies of everything," Emma smiled. "Every nasty email, every manipulative text. The security footage from when you broke into Mom's sewing room. The recording of you bragging to your friends about ruining my art project. Patricia's face went pale. You can't prove. Actually, we can, I interrupted. And unless you want those records shared with the entire family, including your church group and charity board, you're going to do exactly what we say. George put a hand on his wife's shoulder. Patricia, it's time to go home. We need to talk. His voice was heavy with disappointment. As they walked away, Thomas turned to us, tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry, he said. I should have seen it sooner. I should have protected you both. Emma hugged him tightly. You see it now. That's what matters. Later that evening, as we celebrated at Emma's favorite restaurant, our phones buzzed with notifications. Patricia had been busy on social media, posting a long apology for her recent behavior and announcing she would be stepping down from her positions on various community boards to focus on personal growth. Think she means it? Emma asked, taking a bite of chocolate cake. No, I laughed. But she knows we have enough evidence to destroy the perfect image she spent years crafting. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in exposing someone's cruelty. It's in letting them live with the knowledge that they could be exposed at any moment. Thomas reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're incredible, you know that? Both of you. I don't deserve. Don't, Emma interrupted. We're family, and real family protects each other. As we drove home that night, Emma still radiant in her midnight blue dress. I thought about all the years of careful documentation, of creating backup plans, of teaching my daughter to rise above cruelty with grace and preparation. Patricia had tried to break us, but she'd only made us stronger. The dress hung in Emma's room now, a glittering reminder that sometimes the best response to someone's attempt to destroy something beautiful is to create something even more spectacular. And as for Patricia, well, she learned the hard way that you should never underestimate a mother's ability to protect her child, or a seamstress's talent for weaving backup plans. The next morning, we got a message from George. He found Patricia's box of trophies, items she had stolen or destroyed over the years, kept as 6 souvenirs of her victories over Emma. He was filing for divorce. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected ways, and sometimes the most satisfying revenge is simply being prepared for whatever life, or spiteful mothers-in-law, might throw at you. I watched my 12-year-old son Jake light up as he tore open the elaborately wrapped box on Christmas morning. A £5, exactly what he'd been dreaming of all year. My mother-in-law, Diana, sat in her designer armchair, a self-satisfied smile playing across her perfectly made-up face. Grandma, this is amazing, Jake exclaimed, hugging the box to his chest. Can I set it up now? Of course, sweetheart, Diana cooed, shooting me a pointed look. Since your mother couldn't manage to get you one, I had to step in. I bit my tongue, remembering the countless hours I'd spent trying to track down a £5 within our budget after Tom, my husband, lost his job. Diana knew our financial situation. She just chose to ignore it, like she ignored anything that didn't fit her perfect family narrative. Jake's excitement quickly turned to confusion as he opened the box. Instead of a gaming console, he found it stuffed with department store receipts and handwritten IOUs. His face fell, and my heart broke watching his disappointment. Grandma, he asked, his voice small. There's no £5 in here. Diana waved her manicured hand dismissively. Oh, darling, I'm having it delivered later. Those are just promises for all the games we'll buy together. Isn't that fun? Like a treasure hunt. I knew better. This was classic Diana. All show, no substance. She pulled similar stunts before, making grand promises she never intended to keep. But this time, she'd gone too far. This wasn't about me. She'd hurt my son. Jake, honey, why don't you go show your dad your other presents? I suggested, keeping my voice steady. Once he left the room, I turned to Diana. What were you thinking? Oh, lighten up, Sarah, she scoffed. He's fine. I'll get him the console eventually, maybe for his birthday if he behaves. He's not one of your society friends, Diana. You can't just write IOUs to a child on Christmas morning. She stood up, smoothing her expensive silk blouse. Well, if you and Tom had managed your money better, I wouldn't have to make promises, would I? Really, Sarah, working part-time at a bookstore. What kind of example are you setting? My job at the bookstore had been a lifeline after Tom's tech company downsized. It kept food on the table and helped with Jake's school expenses. Diana had never worked a day in her life, living off her late husband's fortune and spending her days orchestrating family drama. That evening, after an awkward Christmas dinner where Diana regaled us with stories of her country club friends' extravagant gifts to their grandchildren, I found Jake in his room, staring at the empty 5 pounds box. "I'm sorry, honey," I said, sitting beside him. "Grandma shouldn't have done that." "It's okay, Mom," he shrugged, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. "I know you and Dad are trying your best." I hugged him tight, making a silent promise to fix this. What Jake didn't know was that I'd been saving every spare dollar from my bookstore job for months. I had a secret account, something I'd started after Diana's last grand gesture left us scrambling to cover promised expenses she conveniently forgot about. The next morning, Diana called, her voice syrupy sweet. "Sarah, darling, about the 5 pound situation. I'm having second thoughts. These gaming consoles, they're not good for children. All that screen time. Maybe it's better if Jake just returns the box to me. I can give him something more educational instead." I knew what this meant. She had either never intended to buy the console or she found something else to spend the money on. Probably another designer bag to show off at her next lunch date. "Actually, Diana," I replied, keeping my voice level, "I think we'll hold on to the box. For when the console arrives." "Don't be difficult, Sarah. I'll need that box back by New Year's. I'm coming to collect it tomorrow." Before I could respond, she hung up. I sat at my kitchen table, anger and determination warring inside me. Then I made a call to my friend Marcus, who owned the local gaming store. We'd been working together on a payment plan, and I'd finally saved enough. "Hey Marcus, remember that 5 pounds we talked about? I'm ready." That afternoon, while Jake was at his friend's house, I drove to Marcus's store. The console was beautiful, and Marcus had even thrown in an extra controller and a game, knowing our situation. He'd seen Jake grow up, coming into the store just to look at the games he couldn't afford. "Diana's at it again?" he asked as he rang up the sale. I nodded, counting out the carefully saved cash. "But this time, I'm ready." "You're a good mom, Sarah," Marcus said, helping me load the console into my car. "Jake's lucky to have you." That night, after Jake went to bed, I sat in the living room with Tom, showing him the console I'd hidden in our closet. "Sarah," he sighed, "how did you manage this?" "I've been saving," I said simply. "Your mother can't keep doing this to Jake. I won't let her." Tom ran a hand through his hair, looking tired. His mother's manipulative behavior had always been a source of tension between us. "You're right, I should have stood up to her years ago." I squeezed his hand. "Well, tomorrow, when she comes demanding that empty box back, we'll both stand up to her." Diana was in for a surprise, and for once I couldn't wait to see her reaction. Sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation. It's simply being prepared. Diana arrived the next morning in her Mercedes, dressed like she was heading to a board meeting rather than collecting an empty box. I watched through the window as she checked her reflection in her car mirror before strutting up our driveway. "I'll just grab the box and go," she announced as soon as I opened the door, not bothering with a greeting. "I have lunch plans at the club." "Actually, Diana, we should talk," I said, stepping aside to let her in. "Jake's in the living room. He has something to show you." She followed me, her designer heels clicking against our hardwood floors. The sound of gaming music filled the air as we entered the living room. Jake sat cross-legged on the floor, completely absorbed in his new 5 pounds, while Tom stood nearby, arms crossed. Diana froze, her perfectly plucked eyebrows shooting up. "What's this?" "My 5 pounds, Grandma." Jake beamed, pausing his game. "Mom got it for me yesterday. It's amazing." I watched the emotions play across Diana's face: confusion, anger, embarrassment. Her carefully maintained composure cracked. But that's not possible," she sputtered. "Sarah, how did you afford this?" "Unlike some people," I replied calmly, "when I make a promise, I make sure I can keep it. I've been saving for months." "You had no right," Diana hissed, lowering her voice so Jake couldn't hear. "This was supposed to be my gift to him. You're making me look bad." Tom stepped forward. "No, Mom. You made yourself look bad when you gave my son an empty box full of false promises." "Thomas," Diana gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. "How dare you speak to me like that? After everything I've done for this family?" "What exactly have you done, Mom?" Tom asked. "Besides making promises you don't keep and criticizing every decision we make." Diana's face flushed red. She opened her expensive handbag and pulled out a checkbook. Fine. How much was it? I'll write you a check right now. The console can be from me as originally planned. I shook my head. It's not about the money, Diana. It's about respecting our family and not playing games with Jake's feelings. Games? She scoffed. I'm trying to give my grandson the best of everything, something you two clearly can't manage on your own. The best of everything isn't empty boxes and broken promises, Tom said firmly. It's having parents who work hard and keep their word. Jake had stopped playing, watching the exchange with wide eyes. Diana noticed his attention and quickly switched tactics, her voice turning syrupy sweet again. Darling, she cooed at Jake, wouldn't you rather tell your friends the £5 was from Grandma? I'll even add in more games than your mother could afford. Before I could intervene, Jake surprised us all. No thanks, Grandma. I like that it's from Mom. She worked really hard for it. Diana recoiled as if she'd been slapped. Her designer mask cracked completely, revealing the bitter woman beneath. Well, she snapped, gathering her purse. I can see I'm not wanted here. Don't expect any more gifts from me. And I'll be telling everyone at the club how you've turned my own grandson against me. Mom, Tom called as she headed for the door. You can't buy love with empty promises. She paused, hand on the doorknob. For a moment, I thought I saw genuine hurt in her eyes. But then it was gone, replaced by her usual cold disdain. We'll see how well love pays the bills, she said and slammed the door behind her. The house fell silent except for the gentle background music from Jake's game. Tom wrapped an arm around my shoulders, and I leaned into him, feeling drained but relieved. I'm sorry, Jake said suddenly. I didn't mean to make Grandma mad. Hey, buddy, Tom knelt beside him. You did nothing wrong. Sometimes adults need to hear the truth, even if it hurts. I watched them together, feeling a surge of pride. We might not have Diana's money or social connections, but we had something more valuable, honesty and real love. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with messages from Diana's country club friends. She'd apparently spent the afternoon spinning her version of events, painting herself as the victim of ungrateful children. A few distant relatives called, urging us to apologize before Diana wrote us out of her will. Let her, Tom said when I showed him the messages. We've spent too many years dancing to her tune. He was right. Diana's money had always been her favorite tool for manipulation, dangled in front of us like a carrot, then yanked away the moment we showed any independence. Looking at Jake playing with his new £5, his face lit up with genuine joy. I knew we'd made the right choice. Sometimes, the best gift you can give your child isn't the most expensive one. It's showing them that integrity matters more than empty promises and that real love can't be bought or stole. The empty £5 box sat in a corner, a reminder that sometimes the most valuable lessons come wrapped in disappointment. Tomorrow we'd let Jake decide what to do with it, but for now, we were content in our small victory, having finally stood up to Diana's manipulative games. New Year's Eve arrived, bringing with it an unexpected series of events. While Jake was upstairs getting ready for our small family celebration, a text from Tom's sister, Ellen, popped up on my phone. Mom's having a meltdown at the country club. She's telling everyone you stole her gift to Jake and demanding the empty box back. What's going on? I showed the message to Tom, who shook his head in disbelief. She's really lost it this time. Before we could respond, our doorbell rang. On our porch stood Ellen, looking flustered in her party dress. I left Mom's New Year's gala early. You won't believe what she's planning. Over coffee, Ellen revealed that Diana had spent the past few days convincing everyone that she actually put cash inside the £5 box, $10,000 in $100 bills, supposedly meant for Jake's college fund. She's claiming you stole the money and bought the £5 with it, Ellen explained. She's threatening to go to the police. Tom and I exchanged glances, then burst out laughing. The box, I said, retrieving it from the closet. We never threw it away. Together, we opened the box in front of Ellen. Inside were exactly what we'd found on Christmas morning, store receipts and handwritten IOUs in Diana's elegant script. Ellen photographed everything, her hands shaking. She's gone too far this time. Half the club members have already promised to contribute to Jake's stolen college fund. She's collecting donations. That's fraud, Tom said quietly. She's actually committing fraud. I remembered the careful documentation I kept of the £5 purchase, receipts, bank statements, even security footage from Marcus's store showing me buying it. Once again, my habit of being prepared would pay off. Ellen's phone buzzed. Mom's telling people she's coming here now with the police. She looked up, worried. What are you going to do? Let her come, I said calmly. We have nothing to hide. When Diana arrived 30 minutes later, she brought not only 2 police officers but an audience, 3 of her country club friends who contributed to the stolen college fund. There, she pointed dramatically at the £5 as an officer examined it. That was bought with the money they stole from the box. I silently handed over my documentation to the officers, the receipt from Marcus's store, bank statements showing my systematic savings, and a statement from Marcus himself confirming our payment plan arrangement. Mrs. Harrison, one officer said to Diana, these documents clearly show how the console was purchased. Do you have any proof of the cash you claim was in the box? Diana faltered for the first time. Her country club friends shifted uncomfortably. The box, the other officer requested. May we see it? Ellen brought it out, along with her photos of its original contents. The IOUs were damning, each one in Diana's handwriting, promising future purchases that would never happen. Mrs. Harrison, the officer said gravely, making false police reports and collecting donations under false pretenses are serious offenses. Diana's face crumpled. Her perfectly crafted narrative was falling apart in front of her most important audience, her social circle. I was only trying to help, she whispered, but her friends were already backing away, murmuring about returning the donations. In the end, Diana wasn't arrested. The officers gave her a stern warning and advised her to return any donations she collected. Her real punishment was watching her carefully constructed social status crumble. As her friends hurried to their cars, Diana turned to us one last time. I hope you're happy, she spat. You've ruined everything. No, Mom, Tom said quietly. You did that yourself. After everyone left, we found Jake sitting on the stairs. He'd witnessed everything. Dad, he asked, is Grandma going to be okay? Tom hugged him tight. Sometimes people need to face consequences to learn and grow. Even grandmas. Later that night, as we celebrated the New Year as a family, I received one final text from Ellen. Mom's resigned from the country club. Says she needs time to reevaluate her priorities. Maybe this was the wake-up call Diana needed. Or maybe not. But we've finally broken free from her manipulative games, and that was worth celebrating. Jake's £5 still sits in our living room, a symbol not just of hard work and honest savings, but of the moment we finally stood up to Diana's toxic behavior. The empty box. Jake decided to fill it with his own savings, teaching himself that real promises are the ones you keep yourself. Sometimes the best lessons come in unexpected packages, even empty ones. $5 each for these old toy boxes. I heard my mother-in-law Carol's voice ring out across her front lawn. My heart stopped. I dropped the box of Christmas decorations I'd been carrying and ran toward the yard sale. My name is Alexandra Weber, and at 35, I was watching my children's inheritance being sold off like dollar store trinkets. The antique wooden boxes, carefully crafted by their late grandfather, sat on a rickety card table, bright orange yard sale stickers slapped across their polished lids. Carol, stop. I called out, but I was too late. A collector was already walking away with Emily's box, and a young mother was counting out crumpled bills for Thomas's. My legs felt like lead as I watched pieces of my children's future disappear into strangers' cars. Oh, Alex, don't make a fuss, Carol said, waving dismissively. I'm just clearing out some of that clutter you insist on keeping in my attic. They're just old boxes. Just old boxes. If only she knew what those hand-carved maple chests contained. My father-in-law, James, had spent his final months preparing them before cancer took him, filling each one with carefully chosen items, documents, and letters meant for his grandchildren's future. Those weren't yours to sell, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. James made them specifically for Emily and Thomas. Carol rolled her eyes, adjusting her designer sunglasses. Please, James never cared about silly keepsakes. He was a businessman. Besides, the kids have enough toys. I clenched my fists, remembering the day James had called me into his study just 2 weeks before he passed. Alex, he'd said, his voice weak but his eyes sharp as ever. I need you to protect these for the children. Carol, she wouldn't understand. Keep them safe until they're 18. I had promised him I would, and now I was watching that promise drive away in a stranger's SUV. Where are the other 2 boxes? I asked, scanning the yard sale tables frantically. James had made 4, one for each milestone in the children's lives: graduation, 18th birthday, wedding day, and first child. Some gentlemen bought those earlier, paid cash, didn't even haggle, Carol said brightly, counting her money. See, people appreciate quality items more than sentimental junk. My stomach lurched. Inside those boxes weren't just James's letters and family photographs. They held stock certificates, property deeds, and trust fund documents, James's way of ensuring his grandchildren would be taken care of long after he was gone. Carol had no idea she just sold millions in assets for $20. Who bought them? I demanded. Did they leave a card? A phone number? Don't be dramatic, Alexandra, Carol sighed. This is exactly why Michael left you. You're always overreacting about everything. The mention of my ex-husband, her precious son who had run off with his secretary 6 months ago, made my blood boil. But I couldn't focus on that now. I had to find those boxes. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed James's lawyer, David Klein. He had helped prepare the contents of those boxes. Maybe he could help track them down. David, we have a problem, I said, pacing away from Carol's satisfied smirk. Carol sold the inheritance boxes at a yard sale. Yes, all 4 of them. No, she had no idea what was in them. She thought they were toy boxes. David's sharp intake of breath told me everything I needed to know. Alex, those boxes contain more than just memories. The trust fund documentation, the property deeds. Without those papers, it'll be nearly impossible to prove James' intentions for the children's inheritance. I know, I replied, my gaze fixed on Carol as she chatted with another customer, oblivious to the damage she'd done. But I made a promise to James, and I intend to keep it. I'm going to find those boxes. Start with local antique dealers and pawn shops, David advised. I'll put out some feelers with my contacts. And Alex, don't tell Carol what was really in those boxes. Not yet. We need to handle this carefully. I hung up and turned back to the yard sale. Carol was now showing off James' old golf clubs to a potential buyer. She had never understood him, never appreciated the quiet, methodical way he planned for his family's future. To her, everything was about appearances and immediate gratification. Those boxes meant a lot to the kids, I said, making one last attempt to reach whatever conscience she had left. They were the last gift their grandfather made for them. Carol's expression hardened. The kids need to learn that life isn't about holding on to the past. James spoiled them enough when he was alive. Besides, she added with a sniff, now that Michael's gone, it's time everyone moved on, including you. I studied her perfectly coiffed hair, her expensive tennis outfit, the designer purse perched on a nearby chair. She had always cared more about status than substance. James had known that. That's why he'd entrusted the boxes to me. As I walked to my car, I made a silent vow. I would find those boxes, every single one of them. Not just for their monetary value, but for the love and wisdom James had packed inside. My children would have their inheritance, both financial and emotional. And Carol? She would learn that sometimes the most valuable things come in unassuming packages. I just hoped I could track down the boxes before the buyers discovered what they actually purchased for $5 each. I glanced at my phone, 2 missed calls, one from David, one from my best friend, Sarah. Time to start making calls and knocking on doors. Those boxes weren't just filled with papers and memories. They contained my children's future, and I wasn't about to let that slip away. I had work to do. And this time, I wouldn't let James down. The next morning, I started my search at every antique store within a 20-mile radius. Each time I entered a shop, my heart would leap at the sight of any wooden box, only to sink when it wasn't one of James's distinctive maple creations. My phone buzzed with a text from Carol. The yard sale was such a success, using the money to join the country club's premium membership. My hands shook with anger as I read it. She had sold millions in assets and was bragging about making a few $100s. I walked into Hamilton's Antiques, the 6th store of the day, where an elderly man was polishing a brass lamp. "Excuse me," I said, pulling out my phone to show him pictures of the boxes. "Have you seen anything like these come through recently?" He adjusted his glasses, studying the photo. Ah, beautiful craftsmanship. Maple, hand-carved. Wait. He disappeared into the back room and returned with a ledger. A gentleman came by yesterday trying to sell one. I offered him $200, but he said he'd try his luck elsewhere. My heart raced. Did he mention where he was heading? Peterson's Pawn, I believe. Just down on Market Street. I practically ran to my car. As I drove, Sarah called with an update. Alex, I think I found the woman who bought Emily's box. She posted it on a local buying and selling page. Get her contact information, I said, pulling into Peterson's parking lot. I'll call you back. The pawn shop was cramped and dusty, but my eyes immediately locked onto one of James's boxes sitting on a shelf behind the counter. The intricate maple leaf design he had carved into the lid was unmistakable. That box, I said to the clerk, pointing. How much? Just came in this morning. Guy wanted $500 for it, said it was an antique. I'll give you $1,000, I said without hesitation. Sarah and I had pooled our savings, knowing we might need to buy the boxes back. The clerk raised his eyebrows. Must be some box. It belongs to my children. It was their grandfather's last gift to them. Something in my voice must have touched him because his expression softened. Tell you what, $600, and it's yours. As he wrapped the box, my phone buzzed again. It was David. Alex, we have a problem. One of the buyers opened their box and found the stock certificates. They're asking questions. My stomach dropped. How much do they want? They haven't named a price yet, but they know what they have. And Alex, Carol's been calling the office all morning. Apparently, someone let slip about the box's contents. I looked at the box in my hands. 1 down, 3 to go. Keep Carol distracted. I'm close to finding another one. Right on cue, Carol's number flashed on my screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. Alexandra, she screeched. How dare you keep this from me? Those were valuable documents. I demand you return everything immediately. Return what, Carol? The boxes you sold for $5 each? I kept my voice level. The ones you called silly keepsakes and junk. Those were meant for the family, for Michael. No, I said firmly. They were meant for your grandchildren. James made that very clear. He knew exactly what he was doing when he trusted them to me instead of you. I'll sue, she threatened. Those boxes were in my house. Go ahead, I replied, thinking of the legal documents James had prepared, naming me as custodian of the children's inheritance. I'm sure the lawyers would love to hear how you sold millions in assets at a yard sale. She hung up, and I took a deep breath. The day wasn't over yet. Sarah texted an address. She had found the woman who bought Emily's box. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in a cozy living room, explaining the situation to a sympathetic mother named Diana. I knew it was special when I saw it, she said, bringing the box from her daughter's room. The craftsmanship reminded me of my own father's work. I couldn't bear to see it sitting there for $5. She refused to take any money for it. Just promise those children will know how much their grandfather loved them. 2 down, 2 to go, but finding the remaining boxes would prove more challenging. The buyer who had discovered the stock certificates had hired a lawyer, and Carol was now on a warpath, telling everyone in her social circle how I had tricked her. As I drove home that evening, I thought about James's last days. He had spent hours in his workshop, carefully crafting each box, making sure every detail was perfect. Alex, he had told me, Carol means well, but she never understood the value of patience, of building something to last. Promise me you'll teach the children what really matters. My phone rang again. David with more news. The other buyer came forward. He's willing to return the box, for a price. How much? $200,000. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. That box is worth 10 times that amount. He knows. That's why he's offering us a deal. Looking at the 2 recovered boxes on my passenger seat, I felt a mix of determination and exhaustion. Carol's betrayal, though unintentional, had turned into a nightmare, but I wouldn't let her thoughtlessness destroy what James had built for his grandchildren. Set up a meeting, I told David. I'll figure something out. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw Carol's Mercedes parked out front. She was standing on my porch, arms crossed, designer handbag clutched like a shield. This confrontation had been coming. I grabbed the 2 recovered boxes and stepped out of my car, ready to face whatever came next. James had trusted me with his legacy, and I wouldn't let him down. Not now, not ever. I walked up to my porch, holding the 2 recovered boxes close. Carol's face was a mask of barely contained rage. "I want everything that was in those boxes," she demanded before I could even reach for my keys. "All the documents, the deeds, everything. They belong to Michael." "No, Carol. They belong to Emily and Thomas, just like James intended." "James wasn't thinking clearly at the end," she snapped. "He was confused. Michael is his son. Everything should go to him." I unlocked my door and walked past her into the house. James knew exactly what he was doing. He spent months planning this, making sure his grandchildren would be taken care of. "After everything I've done for this family," Carol followed me inside, her voice rising, "I raised those children while you were busy with your career. I deserve." "You deserve what?" I turned to face her. "The right to sell their inheritance at a yard sale, to treat their grandfather's last gift like garage sale junk." Carol flinched but quickly recovered. "I'll take legal action. I'll tell everyone how you manipulated James when he was sick." "Go ahead," I said, placing the boxes carefully on my dining room table. "I have James's lawyer, his written instructions, and witnesses to his wishes." "What do you have, Carol?" "A yard sale receipt for $5. Her face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw something besides anger, fear. "I didn't know," she whispered. "How was I supposed to know?" "You weren't supposed to sell things that didn't belong to you," I replied. "James knew this might happen. That's why he made me promise to protect the children's inheritance." My phone buzzed. A text from David. The last buyer had agreed to meet tomorrow. 1 more box to go. "What about Michael?" Carol asked, sinking into a chair. His own father left him nothing. I sighed, pulling out an envelope I had been keeping safe. "James left this for Michael. He asked me to give it to him when the time was right." Carol reached for it, but I held it back. "It's for Michael, not you. When he's ready to face his responsibilities as a father instead of running away with his secretary, he can have it." She stood up, smoothing her expensive dress. "This isn't over, Alexandra. I'll find a way to fix this." "No, Carol," I said firmly. "You can't fix this, but you can start respecting James's wishes and your grandchildren's future." After she left, I opened the 2 recovered boxes, checking their contents. Everything was intact. The letters, the documents, the carefully chosen keepsakes James had selected for each milestone. The next day, I met with the final buyer at David's office. He was a sharp-eyed businessman who knew exactly what he had. $200,000 is more than fair," he said, sliding the box across the conference table. "Considering what's inside." I placed a certified check in front of him. "Consider it a finder's fee for doing the right thing." Once he left, David helped me verify the contents of the last box. "Everything's here," he confirmed. "Alex, you did it. You kept your promise to James." 3 weeks later, I gathered Emily and Thomas in our living room. At 12 and 10, they were old enough to understand some of what had happened. "Your grandfather made these for you," I explained, showing them the boxes. "Inside are special gifts and letters he wrote, meant for different moments in your lives. He wanted you to know how much he loved you and how much he believed in your future." "Can we open them now?" Thomas asked, running his hand over the carved maple leaves. "Not yet," I smiled. "Each one is for a specific time: your graduation, your 18th birthday, your wedding day, and when you have your first child. Just like your grandfather planned." Emily hugged her box close. "Grandma Carol said they were just old toy boxes." "Sometimes people don't understand the value of things that can't be measured in money," I told her. "Your grandfather knew that. That's why he made these boxes special, not just for what's inside them, but for what they represent: his love, his wisdom, and his hope for your future." That evening, after the children went to bed, I sat in my study reading the letter James had left for me. "Dear Alex," it began, "if you're reading this, it means you've kept your promise. I always knew you would. You understand, like I do, that real value isn't in things but in the love and thought behind them. Take care of my grandchildren. Help them grow into people who understand that too." I folded the letter carefully, thinking of Carol and her yard sale, of Michael and his choices, of the legacy James had entrusted to me. The boxes were safe now, waiting to share their secrets at just the right moments in my children's lives. Sometimes the most precious gifts come disguised as simple wooden boxes sold for $5 at a yard sale. But their true value lies in the love, wisdom, and hope carefully packed inside, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. James understood that. And now, thanks to him, my children would too.